Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's virtual plant clinic. My name is Bill Lester. I'm with University of Florida IFAS Extension Service in Hernando County, and I'm here today. I've been out for the last couple of weeks, but I'm back here with my two regular co-hosts who kind of did all the heavy lifting for the last 2 weeks when I wasn't available. Colby Pitts is our Florida Friendly Landscape Coordinator here in Hernando County. Good morning, Colby.
Good morning.
And Bernie is one of our Master Gardener volunteers. He is the plant answer man. So good morning, Bernie. How are you?
Good morning, Bill. I'm doing great.
Okay, we have at least two people on here with us also. So I'm sure more are going to trickle in and join us. And we should, somewhere in the background, have Teresa, who's always at the ready when we get that kind of confused look on our face. She's looking it up online and sharing University of Florida links. So, Veronica, good morning. How are you? Oh, well, thank you, Bassem. I kind of miss being here also, although we were out of town camping last week, so it was still fun. But I was driving home down I-75 right about this time of the morning, and that's never fun. Lori, good morning. How are you? The funny thing is, the few times where I've had to do this all by myself is when I get the most people on here live and they just pour in and they start asking questions and time goes by very, very quickly. Oh, here I thought Veronica was somebody new and it's really Alessandra in disguise. So hey guys, if anybody has any lawn and garden questions, trees, plants, turf grass, vegetable gardening, flowers, invasive plants, weeds. I'm going through all the questions that I've gotten in emails over the last few days. Anything like that, please go ahead and put them in the comments, and we'll do our very best to get them answered. Colby, I think we need to get Bernie a green screen background so that he can have a cool background also.
Yeah, we ought to. Man, it's so. I mean, really, the thing that I have is like a green bed sheet, and I mean, I think really what makes them is like the stand. So my stand's kind of wonky, so you see like it's catching some shadow behind me, even though I'm in an incredibly well lit area. So not a whole lot to it.
Yeah, I struggle with lighting in here, and even though I do now have a green screen, one of the small ones that you hook to the back of your chair, I haven't had a chance to play with it yet, so I'm just using the built-in background, and it's kind of chopping my head off a little bit here. So
yeah, I have like the folds in it, and I try to flatten them out, and they never stay.
Okay, now while we were rambling on there, we actually got a few questions here. So, regular viewer and previous co-host Lily Browning asks, "Is it time to prune the crepe myrtles?" It's February 6th today, so yeah, it's a good time to prune your crepe myrtles right now. Bernie, what do you think?
Well, I'm kind of an advocate of don't prune them, but the thing about it is people want to chop them back, and they normally do it uh, prior to the things breaking out into blooming. So if you do it before they're growing, you have the ugliest tree in the world that develops these big ugly knuckles. The branches never get really substantial. They end up being relatively weak. It's just really not a good thing to do to the plant. On the other hand, uh, if you want to keep it small and uh, that's the way you envision crepe myrtles, uh, it's your tree. Go ahead. Uh, it's just not the way I do things.
Yeah, there's somebody in the neighborhood next to mine. I drive past his house, and he has a couple crepe myrtles, and they're obviously put in the little spot right between the sidewalk and the street. He whacks them back. He prunes his all the way back in November. And his are so old that some of the branches are literally this big around where you need it. You're not using a pruning saw, you're using a chainsaw to trim it with. So if you have to prune your crepe myrtles with a chainsaw, something ain't right.
There is a thing called pollard, where you pick a spot and you prune at that spot, and it develops a very, very big knuckle, and it's always growing from that one spot. And I think it's very, very ugly when the plants are not growing. So, it produces a very pretty looking plant, but you end up half the time you have the ugliest plant in the world in order to half the time have one of the prettiest plants. So, it really becomes a personal thing. The university's position is the plants don't need that, and really good maintenance policy says leave them alone. But that's almost impossible to do. You have a tree and you're the only one in the neighborhood. Everybody else on the block, there's 6 houses. All 6 of them have crepe myrtles. 5 people are doing theirs one way. If you don't do it the same way, your neighbors come over and start explaining how
Yeah.
fit in.
Knock, knock.
I made the mistake one time of I had a neighbor a few houses down that I saw that was, he was mangling those things, and I said that I was taking a walk, and I mentioned it, I was like, hey man, maybe not go so far, and he was not having it. And I was like, well, that's the last time I try to work when I'm off. Never mind. I just kept walking.
Yeah, sometimes the best thing to say is just morning. Keep on going.
Yep.
I had a neighbor who had it was technically a little gem magnolia in his front yard, but little gem magnolias they start little, they don't stay little. It was a big magnolia, and he had to go out there and trim some lower branches, and he didn't have any proper equipment to trim it with, so he just used a machete.
Oh,
Got some branches that were like this big around, and I just born I wasn't going to get into it with him.
Some elbow grease right there.
And a magnolia is a very, very difficult plant to prune. The reason being the lower branches, if you want to prune it up so you can mow underneath it, you need to do that when the plant's really young. You don't want to cut off 4 or 6 inch branches after the plant is grown up. So it at the time when you really need to be doing these things, it kind of screws up the shape of the tree. If you wait until later, it fouls up the health of the tree really bad. A lot of magnolia damage is done trying to raise them up to where you can mow underneath them after the tree's 40 feet tall. They don't like that at all. So,
yeah. Well, when he pruned it, there was no rhyme or reason to it. He climbed up into the tree with his machete and just randomly started hacking off some branches. So it was a little bit easier to get under. Not ideal in any way, shape, or form, really. So, Bernie, is it a good time to trim and fertilize roses?
Right now would be the perfect time to trim the roses. You don't want to go too much later, but if you went out and did it today, that would be just great. And I wouldn't fertilize yet. I'd wait another 30 days would be plenty. And you ought to start having some good growth. But once those things start growing up, it gets a little awkward to start hacking on them. A great time to trim your roses is New Year's Day. So write that on your calendar. New Year's Day, trim the roses.
There you go. That's something good, something productive to do on New Year's Day. So good morning. We have a question here. Somebody got the fig plants that we had recently for one of our classes. One of them is getting brown spots on it, wondering if there's anything I can do or if it will be okay. Those are all small, little starter fig trees. If you have just one leaf that has some spots on it, you could either pinch that leaf off or it's going to eventually fall off. Figs always get fig rust, but that's not until late summer. So right now, your normal average everyday fig is not going to have a lot of disease problems. So I'm not really sure, not being able to see it, what's causing the brown spots on it. If it's just one leaf, that's not a problem. Those figs, because believe it or not, we still have some here waiting on the last person or two to come and pick them up. They have buds on them. They're all starting to bud out. They're going to get new leaves and start to grow very, very soon. So yours should be fine. Okay, here's a situation from Lori. And I think I had the same situation years ago with the people that we live next to. So Lori says, my neighbor had a chain link fence. They left it up and installed a plastic fence. Trees are growing between the two and spreading into my flower beds. Is there anything I could spray to kill anything coming up between the fences? I had a neighbor where I had a wooden privacy fence and I put it just a few inches on my side of the property line. I knew where the property line was. They had a chain link fence installed and set it way in the back of the yard. It was up, butt to butt, up against each other. As it came out towards the street, ended up being like about 2 feet between their chain link fence and my wooden fence. They did not put it anywhere near the property line. So what did we end up with? This weird little no man's land in between two of them, filled with vines and other things that would come up all summer long. And it would get skinny enough way back there where there's no way that I could squeeze back there. So I used generous amounts of triclopyr, which is a herbicide that you can get at a farm store. I'm sure you can get it on Amazon if you like to get it that way, get it delivered. So if you have brush coming up between the two, tiny trees, any kind of vines coming up, triclopyr works very, very well on broadleaf plants, and it's systemic. So because I would spray the vines that were on my side of the fence, and it would kill them like for another 4 or 5 feet back onto their side, and actually got a certain sense of control, although it was never ideal. Why they put the fence where they put it, I'll never know. But
that's also under the trade name Brush Be Gone, which is available at a lot of lawn supply stores. So
yeah, they call it Brush Be Gone or brush killer, brush cutter.
Ground clear, normally. I think it's triclopyr. You may want to be careful though. Make sure you know where your property line is, and because you don't want to spray something on somebody's property line and they get upset at you. Or talk to them. If you have a relationship with them, just talk to them. They may want the stuff gone too.
Yeah, especially if they have prized azaleas or something like that on their side of the fence or anywhere near it. Because if you spray something like triclopyr and it's at all breezy and you get drift, it's gonna speckle and spot and kill things that you probably didn't want to kill.
And triclopyr does have
all today.
There you go. Yeah, that's probably a really great resource for this type of situation. You also remember that triclopyr's it's a short time, but it does have some soil residual activity. It's like a month and a half, something like that. Just remember, if that's the route you're going, that don't try to plant anything there for the next couple months, 3 months or something, or you may not be very successful.
Yes, you want to be very careful with that. I've had people call before, and I can't remember the brand name of the product they used. It may have had a Mazapyr in it. And they said, I sprayed my lawn with this stuff to kill the weeds and everything died. When can I replant? And I pull up the label. It's like, it says a long time, months or a year or two. You need to read that before you spray it. You need to know that up front.
Yeah, and make sure, even if you're going to buy. So funny enough, this happened to me recently, where prepping for my fiance's bridal shower that is at my house. Yay, right? But one of the things we're doing is some landscaping outside, and I sent them to the store to buy Roundup, expecting them to come back with glyphosate. They came back with a Mazapir Roundup, and in my head, and this is the common association, right? Is Roundup is glyphosate, no soil activity, contact herbicide. And they came back with a full bottle of Imazapir Roundup, which isn't going to help me clear the weeds out of something where I need to plant. So just make sure that even if you think this Roundup, it's glyphosate, check the actual chemical herbicides. It's not just the brand name, because they sell, they have 5 or 6 different kinds of Roundup that branded Roundup that have vastly different herbicide formulations that might have some soil activity, might not have soil activity, different use cases for different chemicals.
You don't realize what some of these chemicals do, but like a farmer, there's some of the corn herbicides that clean the cornfields really nice. They put down 6 ounces per acre of the chemical, but you can't plant soybeans the next year because the stuff will ding soybeans for 8 months after you killed off the weeds in the cornfield. So, some of these products have some really horrendous carryover.
And you really have to check with, don't get me wrong, the agriculture folks, industrial agriculture folks know what they're doing, but they're also using special formulations. So don't, the things that work for them that are typically not, one, you're not going to be able to find a lot of those products, at the big box store. You're also you're not trying to grow just corn in your yard. You're trying to grow all kinds of other stuff that those really real deal herbicides might not allow you to do.
Yeah, they're changing formulations because homeowners generally deal with the brand names, Roundup, Weed Be Gone, and people will call me, I use Weed Be Gone. I'm thinking, I don't know what the heck is in it. And I have to look it up and pull up the label. And hopefully the label that I'm looking at is the same as the label on their bottle at their house. They change the active ingredients in these things nowadays. So you have to be very careful that you're looking at active ingredient and actually reading the whole label to find out what does it kill, what will it not kill, how long until I can replant something. Maybe you're going to want to replant something there pretty quickly. You don't want to use something where you have to wait 2 years. That's a long time. So, Roundup is not Roundup anymore. It could be all kinds of different things. I know they're making a number of different formulations.
Image is that way. When I started doing this, Image was a sedge killer, and Images was for sedges. So everybody that came in with a sedge problem, we always just used Image as the product. Well, the problem is Image, being a brand name, is now 10 different products. So you have to have Image for sedges. And the poor people that used Image for sedges forever and ever and ever went and bought Image and bought the wrong one. Some of them had some very bad results because they had the wrong Image product. So, you need to know what the active ingredient is that you're looking for, and make sure that that's the active ingredient that's in the product. These manufacturers are very good about using the same name for 10 different things. So
yeah. So if it's something that you bought and used before, and a couple years have gone by and you're buying another container of it, read the label, read the packaging very, very carefully to make sure that you understand exactly what you're getting.
Yeah, if you're looking for, glyphosate is one of those like catch-all products that's really good at killing a lot of stuff that doesn't have any soil activity. So, the Roundup glyphosate is fine, but you have to buy the specific one that is just glyphosate. The one that I know of comes in a concentrate. It's Roundup Custom. Because like the Roundup, I went and found what they came back with, and the Roundup Weed and Grass Killer, which that seems, hey, that's what we're looking for, right?
Yeah.
the active ingredients in that are triclopyr and diquat. So, that's a mean soil active herbicides that you're not going to be, if you're putting that in a flower bed to get rid of the stuff beforehand, as we were doing before you plant something else. That's not going to do. Nothing else is going to grow there for months.
Yeah.
So look for specific formulations at all. I mean, like I said, Roundup Custom is I think like 50% just glyphosate, if that's what you're looking for.
And it's really not the cancer-causing product that the TV ads lead you to believe. It's probably gotten a very, very bad image from a European article written that has no scientific background. But like so many things, if there's a possibility of making a nickel, then the attorneys have figured out a way to make it. So,
and of course,
don't be terrified, but follow the instructions. They tell you right on the package how to protect yourself from the dangerous things that this might do. And some of those products really do have danger. So you don't go out in a pair of shorts and cut and some sloppy shoes and flip-flops and just spray everything. It may be your toes will fall off, but it told you on the package. So, read the instructions. The label's the law, and nobody wants to break the law. So you can solve that simply. Just read it.
I want to bookend what Bernie's saying. This is not medical advice. Do not take. We are not doctor. We are not. Well, Dr. Lester's a doctor, but not a medical doctor. So we're not giving any medical advice. Those labels, man, it is one, you buy your jug of herbicide, that label, it peels off and it unfolds. It's a bunch of pages. Every label for every herbicide like that it actually like legally has to be available online. For all the big companies, your Roundups, like you're going to be able to find those like in PDF or just on their websites or in their safety data sheets that have all this stuff. So if you're concerned and you don't want to buy it, you can just Google it and it will be there. I promise. So, make sure it all just goes back to the labels of the law. But if you want to do some research before you buy, as I think everybody should, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. And use common sense. I haven't told this story for a while, but the last house that we lived in, people across the street, nice neighborhood, very nice people. And the guy, he had a Bahia lawn and he would go out there and spray something on his lawn. I would assume some kind of herbicide to reduce the number of weeds in his Bahia lawn. But he used like a 1 or 2 gallon pump sprayer. And the guy used to, I'd see him out there cutting his lawn, trimming the bushes, this and that. He'd normally be out working in the yard in a pair of flip-flops and a Speedo bathing suit. And he wasn't like competing with Olympic swim team or anything like that. He probably should not have been wearing a Speedo bathing suit. Didn't stop him though. So I see the guy out there one day with a pump sprayer in his hand, spot spraying his yard in Speedo bathing suit and flip-flops. And that's not considered personal protective wear on any label. It always says wear long pants, closed-toe shoes, so no bare feet or flip-flops, shoes or boots and socks. Whether it says to or not, you always want to wear some kind of gloves on your hands. And something people don't think about is always wear some kind of eye protection, because if you're bending over and you're mixing things and you're adding the water, you're adding the chemical, whatever it might be, things can splash up and you don't want it to get in your eyes. Definitely not. On a label for glyphosate, Roundup, it says, if you get it in your eyes, flush your eyes out with water for,
I think it's 10 minutes.
10 minutes, yeah.
It's not just real quick. I know that. I've had to do it. It's not real quick.
Okay. Well, what's it like sticking a garden hose in your eye for a full 10 minutes?
So we had so the time that this happened to me, that I had to do the whole deal, it was now obviously this isn't gonna happen to most people, but we're dealing with like pump systems with a small engine pump systems, and I had a fitting explode on me while I was, while the pump was priming, and this hose came right out, and I was, working on this engine, and like right here, and we had these little bottles of saline, and you're just holding it as long as you can, then you get another one, and the glyphosate does not feel good in your eyes. Nothing nothing feels good going into your eyes, So, and the thing is I even had safety glasses on, and it's still, so you can only imagine how much worse it could have been. So, PPE, wear your PPE. And I think everybody should keep, a box of rubber gloves. Like I use them to work on the car. I use them to work on all kinds of stuff, and they're really convenient. Your hands don't get dirty, but it's also, you're dealing with any type of chemical. That's like the bare minimum is going to tell you is eye protection and rubber gloves.
Yeah, I got the cheap rubber gloves. I have the thicker ones for using any kind of chemicals. I just noticed today, laying around my desk, if you remember COVID, we still got these things laying around. I use these things sometimes whenever I'm mixing anything or spraying anything. If I could smell it, I'm putting one of these on. So,
like I have one of those.
Good use.
I have one of those like respirator deals for if you're spray painting indoors. I get a little handy in the garage, so you have that thing. And these things are not expensive. It costs very little to be safe, and you'll regret not doing it. Like, what's the harm in doing it? Nobody ever regrets wearing their PPE. That's for sure.
Okay, Lily asks about non-chemical ways of dealing with weeds and stuff. I thought Teresa. Oh, there we go.
A really great non-chemical way is to just lay a roofing shingle over where you want it to go away. Usually at some place in the garage, there's a half a box of shingles that were left over from when they roofed the house, and you're never going to use them. So you can go out and just lay them over the plants. You'll have a bare spot in a week. You pick that up and you can move it somewhere else.
Yeah.
And it's very easy. So just a thought.
I remember as a kid, we had a big old piece of sheet metal that we'd lay down to dip. We ever had anywhere we wanted to get rid of the grass or what have you.
That all works and it's all safe to use also. So, hey guys, if we have any questions out there in the viewing audience, anything else you'd like to ask about or know about, please just go ahead and put them in the comments and we'll do our very best to answer them for you. And I can pretty much guarantee that Teresa will find and post a whole bunch of University of Florida information on the topic.
One of the things that we were talking about earlier that I think a lot of people would be interested in is what's happening to citrus. And, the university has developed 5 varieties that they believe are ready for commercial production, and they've released them for commercial production. So the commercial growers will get first shot at them, and then the homeowners will be able to get them later on. But by the time they do all the initial stuff it takes and grow them out a little bit, it's going to be 2 years before the new plants start becoming available, and probably 3 years for the homeowners. But at least that's 6 plants that are coming out. And some of the people are using oxytetracycline on the trees, and it appears to be helping. That if you have a tree that has some citrus greening and is still in production, but it's very limited in production, the OTC tends to double the production of the plants and really delays the further growth of the OTC or the greening symptoms. So it's probably not a real practical thing for homeowners yet, but I assume that since it is functioning and they've done some work that there will be somebody offering an OTC injection system that will be available for homeowners probably in the very near future. So, if you've wanted citrus and it's been a really serious problem for you, good news. Some plants are coming.
A lot of those, industrial and academic innovations, they eventually make the right. I mean, that's how all this works.
Yeah.
I mean that the innovation breeds an opportunity to make some money, and they're going to sell those solutions to people later. I did want to something I was thinking about, not to go back to what we were just talking about, but when you're talking about weed control, and this is like a lot of things when you're with your home garden, your landscaping, it's prevention. Prevention is going to be a big thing. And while you can't mulch weeds away that are already there, but using mulch as a weed suppression system is kind of that prevention thing we're talking about. That might be a little bit less effort, less chemical input on your lawn that you kind of invest at the beginning, that's going to keep that stuff from happening later. There's a whole lot of good UF information on different kinds of mulches. I was just thinking about it. I gave a mulch presentation yesterday, and it all just came back to me that I had just talked about all this. So
mulch helps.
Yeah, mulch helps. Mulch is great.
And going back to citrus, there is one citrus greening resistant variety that's available called Sugar Bell, and our Master Gardener Nursery is supposed to get a truckload of them very, very soon. As a matter of fact, I need to go online probably today and go ahead and pay for them. So we will have those available for a short time, limited number at the nursery. So keep following us on Facebook. I will definitely put a post up about it and other information, or just start swinging by the Master Gardener Nursery. They're there Wednesday morning and Saturday mornings from 8:30 in the morning until noon. And there is the address right below. And we got a number of questions here. Let me be nice and start at the beginning and go through taking our turns here. And Lily asks about, what about mulch? Rocks or mulch? I like landscape rocks. Florida-friendly landscaping discourages overuse of rock.
In moderation is what they say.
Yes, use rocks in moderation. I saw somebody once before, and it was in a subdivision, so I'm not normal size subdivision yard. The whole backyard had landscape timbers down the property line, all rock. Probably walk by with his pump sprayer with Roundup a couple times a year, all rock, no dead lawns, no fertilizing, no watering, no resodding, no nothing. I'm thinking, I respect that. Technically, it's not recommended, but I respect that. We got a question from Marnie. New question asker Marnie. So maybe Marnie's been watching us for a year and lurking in the background, maybe not. She said, good morning. I have a mango tree that drops 2/3 of its fruit very early in their gestation. It's been neglected for probably 20 years. Is there something I could add to the drip line so it will produce or hold on to more of its fruit this year? Some of the ones that stay on don't even get ripe. Technically, I'm not the world's mango expert. I know a bit about them, mostly because I work in Hernando County and we don't grow a whole lot of mangoes here. Just south of here, you can grow mangoes. Any fruit tree is going to drop a certain amount of its fruit. What happens with any fruit tree, and this applies to mangoes, citrus, peaches, plums, nectarines. In the spring, when the time comes for it to flower, it flowers. And it will make 1 million flowers, like more flowers than it could ever hold on to that amount of fruit. What you need is good bee weather for a couple days when it flowers, so the bees will come by and pollinate them. So if you get that, you have a mango tree or some other fruit tree with a bajillion flowers on it that are all nicely pollinated now. It will start to create fruit, really, really teeny tiny little fruit. And the tree will get to a point where it's like oh my gosh, we have 16,000 little baby mangoes on here. We can only support 50. Just throwing some numbers out there. So the tree will know to drop a bunch of fruit and only hold on to what it can sustain. As it goes further along, it hits another point. How are we doing? Marnie's not fertilizing us, really erratic with watering, weather's been bad, lots of things going. We can't hold on to even this much fruit. We're going to drop some more. I know it's really, really common with citrus to get 2 fruit drops. Peaches, plums, nectarines will do the same thing, or it will hold on to a lot of the fruit, but you end up with peaches that are about the size of a crab apple. You don't want that. So if the tree has been neglected for about 20 years, Teresa needs to pull up some information on growing mangoes, and UF has a lot of information on tropical fruit trees. Jeff Wisleski, and in a moment here, I'll let you guys talk for a few minutes while I pull it up, does a whole series on tropical fruit trees, and he's had ones on mangoes, how to care for them, how to make them happy. But probably long term, what you need to do is get a proper fertilizer, get on a good fertilizer program, take really good care of the mangoes, prune back. I'm sure it needs at least a little pruning, a little cleaning up, and get it on track. And then it's going to be able to hold on to more of its fruit than it has been. So that might be kind of a long-winded explanation or answer to that, but that's kind of what I got. So let me go ahead and see if I can't find some of Jeff's information on here. Let me throw this one out for you guys to answer. Shelly in the South.
Right before
aphids.
Right before we get to that question, I did want to say doing research at another time, I remember there is actually a mango, I think it's one of the IFAS blog posts from a county south of here. I can't remember which one it is, but I think those things that it's like, our mango fruit drops regular? Is this like a normal thing that happens? And I think even overwatering is they'll drop. They're kind of fickle plants when it comes to dropping that fruit. That's just an evolutionary thing where they're like you said, that they can only support. It knows how much it can support and is trying to get the absolute most out of the resources it puts in.
Yeah, a lot of our soil is short on minor nutrients, and so using the mango fertilizer, the citrus type fertilizer, provides the minor nutrients. So you can have soil that provides enough of everything, but maybe it's a little short on zinc and boron, and you start losing the fruit because there isn't enough, and those particular things become important to just that particular tree. So like pecans, if you're growing pecans here, pecans require a lot of zinc. So if you don't add the pecan tree fertilizer, or at least supplement the fertilizer with some zinc, you're not going to get much of a crop of pecans. So I'm not sure that mangoes have any one particular minor that is a real problem, but most of the fruit trees have some minor that is almost always deficient in our sandy soils. So
I think for mangoes, they generally recommend citrus fertilizer.
Yeah, they do.
All the micronutrients.
Yeah.
And it looks like Teresa beat me to pulling up the information on growing mangoes in the Florida home landscape, and also a YouTube link, and that's probably to one of Jeff's videos on mangoes. Real nice guy. If you're in South Florida, go ahead and get in contact with him or reach out to him with your questions. Or just watch all of his videos. That's a really, really good start right there.
What is a natural and effective way to get rid of aphids? The easiest natural and effective way is to get a bunch of ladybugs. They just love aphids. Their little larvae just are aphid eating machines. But if you need a little faster and you're wanting to say pretty natural, horticultural soap and very effective, and the oils are very effective. Neem oil And this is a good time if and as long as the temperature stays in the under 80 range, the oils work really good. Once the temperatures get above 85, the oils start possibly damaging the plants. So, but the soapy water, you can use that pretty much at any kind of a temperature, and there's no problem. And it's a very effective thing. The only thing you have to remember if you're going to spray it is the aphids are generally underneath the leaf, and you've got to spray the underneath. So if you're talking about a tree that's 20 feet high, you're not going to be able to really do much about it, except put a handful of ladybugs out. They're going to leave after pretty quick. So maybe if you can get them going in the neighborhood, they'll be of a big use to you. But otherwise, for small plants, probably soapy water, the horticultural soap, is the least environmentally unfriendly method that you can use.
Yeah, I was gonna say insecticidal soap. I've actually heard, and I don't know the validity of this, but I've heard that if they're smaller plants and you spray them off with cold water, that they won't climb back up for whatever reason, because they're insects, they're exothermic. They're not producing a whole lot of body heat. So by cooling them down, I think it makes them tired or something, and they don't which makes sense. But I've heard that you can spray them off with cold water, and that works as well.
Yeah, you can take a garden hose and don't blast your plant where you damage it, but if you could blast it hard enough, you could blow the aphids off. And there are aphids that have wings, but aphids don't start cranking out baby aphids that have wings until it's time for them to move on to another plant. They sense when there's too many aphids or the plant's just about dead. They're thinking we need to move on. Let's start making babies that have wings, and those guys fly away. The other ones don't have wings.
I had heard that if you spray the plant with alcohol, put a little bit of dried sand on everything, the aphids get drunk, start throwing rocks at each other, and it's not that big a problem. So I'm not sure that
I've never heard that one before.
We're talking high proof, not isopropyl, just so everybody's aware.
Yeah.
I think Bernie's been reading posts in different Facebook gardening groups, so that's where you see some unusual things like that, really unusual recommendations that might not be the best for your plant or for you or for anybody else.
What was the gardener's name that everything he started out with was urine and tobacco juice?
Well, there was the one guy who used a lot of beer, mouthwash, and ammonia. I can't remember him. He was on PBS, I think, I don't know.
Yeah.
30 years or more ago. So, but yeah, a lot of those things we don't recommend. So Veronica said that she got one of our sugar bells last year and is growing well. How long will it take for them to start fruiting?
Possibly this year, but I would dump the fruit this year, let it put all of its energy into plant growth. It'll start producing in the second year. It'll be a realistic producer from the third year on. So it's a baby. You don't really need any fruit off of it yet. You'd rather have a plant. So all the energy that would go into fruiting, if you get rid of the fruit, will go into producing the plant, and it will be much better for the plant.
And be sure to get some dry granular quality citrus fertilizer. Get on a good fertilizer program. And you really need to spray it with the liquid micronutrients once or twice a year also on top of that to make for the healthiest possible citrus trees. Lily says that I once said that you couldn't talk about mulch for an hour. That is true. I'm thinking, mulch? We're going to do a class on mulch. What am I going to talk about? Talk about mulch for 10 minutes. I can go on give me a topic. I can go on for an hour on it. I don't care what it is.
I talked to one person about mulch for an hour, literally yesterday.
So it is possible.
The two greatest things that you can possibly have in your arsenal are mulch and compost.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the two
Shelley
cheapest.
says that her citrus plants are just sticks. Any recommendations for encouraging leaf growth? You need to get on a good fertilizer program. Go ahead and buy a bag of quality citrus fertilizer. And all depending on where you live in Florida, I'm not sure exactly, how far north or south, you're going to fertilize them lightly from spring through fall, not in the winter because they're really not growing during the winter. And that's going to make them flush out and grow well, hopefully.
The other thing is, how old are the plants and do they have greening? Unfortunately, if they've got greening already, they're not going to survive, or they're not going to do any better. They're not going to actually add to the plant. They're whatever they are at now is as good as they're going to get.
Yeah. So Shelley, Teresa's sitting here putting links in fast and furious. If you read any of the information on growing citrus from University of Florida, that's going to tell you about the disease citrus greening, and that is what it kills citrus trees. So if you read that, you can look at your trees and see if they have greening or not. If they do have greening, not a whole lot you can do about that. There's nothing you could do that's going to fix them or cure them.
The greening is spread by a little insect called an Asian citrus psyllid, and there's a lot of research right now towards getting rid of the citrus psyllid. If we can get rid of the little insect, there won't be anything around to vector the disease, and we'll be able to get in front of the disease. But as long as the insect's around, none of the citrus is safe. And we only have a couple of citrus so far, that sugar bell and the finger limes, that are actually tolerant. They're not totally resistant. They still suffer from some effects, but it doesn't seem to hurt their production. So,
boy, and those finger limes, I never had a chance to pull up what the low temperatures that they can handle are. But we had a lot of cold weather in this area, and I live in Spring Hill. I had a lot of cold nights, early mornings where it got down to like probably 33, where everything was really unhappy but didn't majorly damage anything. Got one morning where it was down like in the upper 20s, and the banana froze and a bunch of other stuff froze. Oh my gosh, that finger lime didn't lose a single leaf. It is just as green and healthy, not growing a whole lot at the moment, zero damage from the cold weather. Didn't bother it at all. So I'm like, that is a winner. I want to get a couple more. Get rid of the stuff that freezes, put in more finger limes so I don't have to worry about covering or freezing and dying, and I'll be set. And Teresa did put up a link here to citrus greening that explains what that is. So Shelley, that'll help answer that question for you. And yes, Lily, I could make it through probably at more than a day, maybe two if things were really quiet, but definitely not more than 2 days without Teresa's help. So faster and better than Siri or Alexa or any of them. And if you're interested about what a finger lime is, Teresa put a link up. They're from Australia. So you'll see them called finger limes, Australian limes. Still haven't tried a fruit. Don't know what they taste like yet, but my trees are happy. And going back up here, yeah, it was Jim Baker that was the garden guy that he always liked the hose end sprayer, can of beer, some mouthwash, ammonia. Ammonia is a precursor basic form of nitrogen. Your lawn does need nitrogen. your lawn doesn't need ammonia. Ammonia is a really harsh way of giving your lawn nitrogen. So, wonder what happened to him. I don't think he's around anymore.
He wrote a great book and had a TV show for years. I recorded maybe 50 of his TV shows. They're all on VHS tape, which of course I have no way to play, but I've got them. Yeah, he was an excellent gardener. His book, I think, is probably one of the best books for a first time gardener in Florida. That pretty well covers most of the things that you need to know, and it covers them at a level that beginners can understand. So
yeah.
I had never heard of Jim Baker, so I Googled it. I don't think I got the right guy.
No. I was going to say there's more than one Jim Baker in the world.
Well, I think the gardening guy is Jerry Baker.
Oh, okay, that's it.
That was the one over in.
Sorry, Mr. Baker, if you're watching.
Yeah.
Because when I looked up Jim Baker, he is a American televangelist and convicted felon, so probably not.
I remember him.
And he may know about gardening. We don't know, but we really don't recommend him.
Now you're going to make me have to look that up. Write me a little note.
Now everybody's looking it up.
Yeah. This guy's got a lot of books on sale on jerrybaker.com, but maybe two different guys we're talking about.
Okay, Bassem says he loves finger lime fruits and uses them in his cooking. I know that they are very, very expensive. Really high-end restaurants use them in recipes to, look really fancy and add that, different flavor and look to it and everything. So I'm just going to have to be patient and wait for mine. Okay, and to clear up all that confusion on which Mr. Baker we're talking about, Teresa went ahead and put a link up. And Shelly said that she just bought that should be a Dorset gold apple tree, and she lives in zone 9B. And any suggestions for keeping the tree alive, flush, and productive? Bernie, you want to handle this one?
No, because the only thing I can think of is move to Georgia. Actually, that's going to be tough. That's one of those things that it depends entirely on where you are. The soil type is important. If you're really a high sandy soil, it's probably not going to do well. If it's, there's just so many things on apples. It's like a 30% shot that it's going to be a successful tree. So, apples are considered to be one of the very, very worst plants as far as diseases, and they have a very short life in Florida. They tend to grow fast. It does not get cold enough. There's just a lot of things about apples that don't work well. But if you have the right microclimate and the right soil, you end up with a tree that's very successful. But like I say, the odds are about 30%. Plant the tree, fertilize it, and keep your fingers crossed.
Now, Teresa put a link up to a fact sheet, and this is a blog from Nassau County. Nassau County is the county that's just north of Jacksonville. So I know that up in around Jacksonville and Florida Panhandle, you can grow apples up there. They're not going to grow nearly as well as like they do in Washington State, but you can grow apples up there and actually get apples off of them. So for apples, if you're anywhere in Central Florida, it will be tougher. You need to plan on being on a good fungicide program, because those leaves will get leaf spots and will get eaten up by fungal problems in the summer and loses leaves early. So you're going to have to spray with the fungicide. I would read that fact sheet and get on a good fertilizer program if you have very sandy soils. The funny thing is, whenever this comes up in conversation, like on a Facebook gardening group or something, there's always one person. They say, I live in Orlando and I have 3 apple trees and I get bushels of apples and they look great. It's like that one person makes everybody think that it's really easy to do, when in reality, it will be a challenge. If you do it and you're successful, that you should be very, very, very proud of yourself, because you will be one of the very few that's really successful with apples. And Lily says the apple tree will get cedar apple rust if cedars are around. That is a possibility. That's a fungal disease here that cycles between apple trees and cedar trees. And it makes a really funny gall or little ball kind of on the cedar trees that can cycle back and forth between them. So there's a lot of problems that apples can have here in Central Florida. If we have a really warm winter, it's not going to flower much. You're not going to get apples the next season. If you have an unusually cold winter like we pretty much are finishing up with right now, Bernie, you think we got a pretty good number of chill hours this winter? My guess is, yeah.
No.
Oh, there's a lot of hours.
I would say at best we were average. I don't think I think we're just a little below average.
Yeah. We'll have to wait and see, because if you get that extra cold, not so cold where it's damaging, but just below 40 or 45, a lot of your fruiting trees and plants and bushes are going to get, really good flower set. Here we go. Our regular listener up in the Panhandle, Buddy, says he lives up around Tallahassee. He has 2 Anna apples and he gets good production. He planted them at least 15 years ago. So yes, I know the Buddy's mentioned that before, and they can do really well in the Panhandle. The further south you go from there, the trickier it's going to be.
I would say you draw a line across the state that goes through Gainesville, and
yeah,
south of that line, it gets harder and harder and harder.
Yeah, and then it comes down an awful lot to the microclimate, soil, the natural soil type, everything else. Bassem, thank you so much, and thank you so much for tuning in just about every week here. And I think on that note, we'll go ahead and start kind of wrapping it up real quick. Let me see if anybody ever needs to get in touch with me. There is my email address. So the best way to get a hold of me is shoot me an email. I will show you the office phone number, but I'm rarely here to take phone calls. So best thing to do is shoot me an email. Let's get Colby's link tree here that has all of his contact information, upcoming classes, upcoming programs, everything else. So you can see what Colby's up to right there. And let me show the office phone number once again. If you'd like to get in touch with Bernie, Bernie is here on Thursdays. You can call, you can stop by the office. If you call on the phone, Teresa's going to answer. She's the one helping us out and putting all the links and information in the background. And she'll turn you over to Bernie, and you can actually chat on the phone with Bernie and ask him your question. So, guys, we're here to help. If we don't know the answer, we'll find out what the answer is from an expert or from somewhere. And Teresa put a link here on chill hour monitoring. So if you're curious about how many chill hours you've gotten in your area, which does have a big impact on how well your flowering and fruiting trees are going to do this coming spring, you can check right there. And you know what, guys? I'm going to be here again next week also. I'm going to be here the next couple of weeks. So
How about that?
I know. Surprise, surprise. So, hey, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in and watching. We really appreciate it. Please be sure to join us again next Thursday morning at 10 a.m. when I'm going to be here, and Colby should be here, and Bernie should be here. And I'm going to try to invite some other people. We will have a guest the following Thursday, but I don't have anybody lined up for next Thursday yet. So I got to work on that. But until then, thank you so much. Have a great day. Have a great weekend coming up. Weather should be really nice. And we'll see you again next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.